At just 18, Amaka was determined to make her mark. Growing up in Nigeria, she had seen her fair share of challenges. But instead of succumbing to them, she decided to face them head-on. With unwavering determination, she enrolled in the military academy, driven by a desire to serve her country and prove herself in a male-dominated field. Training was tough, pushing her to her limits both physically and mentally. But Amaka refused to give up. She gritted her teeth through grueling drills, her determination shining brighter than the scorching sun overhead. With each passing day, she honed her skills, mastering the art of combat and earning the respect of her peers. By the time she turned 25, Amaka had become a force to be reckoned with. Standing tall amidst her fellow soldiers, she exuded confidence and strength. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and her prowess in battle was unmatched. She had worked hard to earn her place among the best, and nothing could stand in her way. One day, a new leader, Captain Mike, arrived at their base. He was tall and strong, with a nice smile. When he talked, his voice was deep and firm, making people respect him. Amaka, who was always paying attention, noticed how his eyes wrinkled when he smiled, making her feel a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, though she didn't know why. Things got tougher with Captain Mike leading. He pushed them hard, but Amaka could see he was still encouraging when she did well on tasks like obstacle courses or hitting targets. One hot afternoon, during a tough pretend battle, Amaka hurt her ankle. It hurt a lot, and she fell down. Captain Mike was there in a flash, showing he cared as he checked her injury gently. "It looks like a sprain, soldier," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Put some ice on it, and you'll be fine soon." The way he looked at her, with concern and something else Amaka couldn't understand, made her blush. She said thanks quietly and limped back to where they stayed, feeling that warm, fuzzy feeling in her chest even stronger than before. As time passed, Amaka grew fond of Captain Mike's calm leadership and strong belief in himself. He treated everyone with respect, no matter their rank. He often visited the barracks to check on her ankle, and they'd chat about her life before joining the army. Amaka learned he grew up without parents, raised by his strict but caring aunt. He hoped to start a school for kids who didn't have much after he left the army. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in fiery colors, Amaka sat outside, lost in her thoughts. Captain Mike surprised her by asking if he could sit with her. They talked comfortably for a while, enjoying the sight of the stars coming out. They shared stories from their past, laughing at Amaka's tales of mischief with her siblings. As they talked, Amaka felt a special connection with Captain Mike, even though rules said soldiers shouldn't get too close to their officers. Despite enjoying their time together, Amaka worried about the consequences of breaking the rules. Her fear grew when Sergeant Dan, a strict soldier, noticed their friendship during a weapons cleaning session. He pulled her aside and warned her about the serious punishment they could face for fraternizing. Amaka felt overwhelmed by Sergeant Dan's words. She feared the shame it could bring to her family and the danger it posed to her friendship with Captain Mike. That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she struggled with a tough choice: follow her feelings or stick to her duty. The idea of losing Mike, never seeing his friendly face again, hurt her deeply. But the thought of letting down her family and ruining her military career hurt just as much. She tossed and turned in bed, feeling lost in the quiet of the barracks. The next day, Amaka felt heavy-hearted. She avoided Mike, feeling worse each time she couldn't meet his gaze. Training felt like going through the motions, her mind weighed down by Sergeant Dan's warnings. By evening, Amaka couldn't stand the silence anymore. After dinner, she found a quiet spot under a big tree. Feeling overwhelmed, she paced back and forth, trying to figure things out. Suddenly, Mike appeared, looking worried. Relief flooded through Amaka, but so did nerves. She couldn't keep her feelings from him any longer. Tears filled her eyes as she poured her heart out, explaining her emotions, her fear of breaking the rules, and Sergeant Dan's harsh words. Mike listened carefully, then surprised her by taking her hands gently. He spoke softly, saying he understood her fear and respected the rules, but he couldn't deny his feelings for her. He asked her to trust him, assuring her that what they felt was real. A glimmer of hope sparked in Amaka's heart. But she couldn't ignore the serious consequences. "But what should we do, Mike? They might kick us out of the army." Mike looked worried. He knew she was right. Breaking the rules could mean big trouble for their careers. But their bond was too strong to just forget about. "We can't keep hiding our feelings," he said. "But there has to be another way. Maybe we can talk to the colonel. Explain everything, how we feel." Amaka felt a knot of worry in her stomach. The colonel was known for being strict. But there was a small chance she might understand if they were honest. "Do you think she'll get it?" Amaka asked, unsure. "We won't know until we try," Mike replied firmly. "But we need a plan. We need to explain things without making it seem like we don't care about the rules." They spent the whole night making a plan under the stars. Amaka surprised herself with how confident she felt. They decided to gather evidence of their dedication to the army, like their good training scores and positive feedback from other officers. They hoped this would show the colonel how serious they were. The next week was busy. Amaka worked hard to prove herself, while Mike quietly found out more about the colonel to understand her better. Finally, the big day came. Dressed in their best uniforms and with nervous hearts, Amaka and Mike went to the colonel's office. They knocked on the door, feeling tense as they waited for her to let them in. The colonel, a tall woman with a serious look, glanced up from her desk. Mike started their prepared speech, talking about how much they loved the army and respected their bosses. Then he got honest and spoke about the feelings they had for each other. Amaka took over, explaining how Sergeant Dan's warning had made them realize the seriousness of their situation. She showed the colonel a folder they made with their good records and how they helped the unit. The colonel listened carefully, not showing much emotion. When they finished, there was a long silence. Then, the colonel spoke calmly. She said they were brave for being honest, but breaking the rules was a big deal. Still, she admitted their situation was special. She needed time to think. Amaka and Mike felt hopeful but anxious. The colonel told them she needed time to decide and sent them away. The next days felt like forever. They couldn't focus on training, worrying about what the colonel would decide. Sergeant Dan seemed to enjoy seeing them uneasy. One day, he mocked Amaka, saying her feelings were making her weak. She got mad and pushed herself even harder, impressing everyone. Finally, the colonel called them back. This time, the atmosphere was different. The colonel said they were great soldiers, but fraternizing was serious. Amaka felt disappointed, but Mike stayed calm. He suggested a solution: one of them could move to a different base for a while. This way, they could follow the rules but still stay loyal to the army. The colonel thought about it and said it was a good idea but wouldn't be easy to arrange. Amaka and Mike felt a bit hopeful inside. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was a chance. They agreed to go through the official process for the transfer, ready to fight for what they wanted. The colonel seemed to respect their decision. "Okay," she said. "Write up a formal request. Let's see what we can do." Leaving the office, Amaka and Mike breathed a sigh of relief. They still weren't sure what would happen, but they felt a little hopeful. They finally had a goal to work towards together. Their love might have caused problems, but they were determined to figure it out. A crisp khaki uniform sits beside her. Behind them, shelves of files and paperwork line the walls. The next weeks were busy and nerve-wracking. They filled out paperwork for the transfer, making sure to highlight their good records and explain their situation. They even got letters from other officers praising their hard work and leadership. Waiting for a reply felt like forever. Training helped distract them, but they couldn't stop thinking about it. Whenever they looked at each other during training, they silently shared their hopes and fears. Sergeant Dan kept making snide remarks, but they ignored him, focusing on their goal. Finally, they got an envelope. Their hearts raced as they opened it, seeing the official letter inside. They read it quickly, feeling anxious until they reached the bottom line. Amaka and Mike felt really disappointed when they saw the first message: Amaka's transfer request was denied. But then, they saw something hopeful: Mike's transfer was approved, but only for 6 months to another base. Amaka felt relieved but also worried. 6 months apart seemed like a long time. She looked at Mike, silently sharing her thoughts. It wasn't the best situation, but it was a chance to show they were serious about their love. The next days were full of goodbyes and promises. Mike packed up, feeling both sad and happy. He hugged Amaka tightly, promising they'd figure it out together. As Mike left, Amaka waved goodbye, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she wouldn't give up on their love. Back at the base, Amaka threw herself into training, determined to show their love was strong. She wrote to Mike often, sharing her days and her determination to be with him again. Months passed, and their love grew stronger despite the distance. Mike's letters were a lifeline, keeping them connected. They shared their hopes and dreams, knowing they'd be together again one day. One evening, as Amaka read Mike's letter, an idea struck her. She wanted to prove their love was real, not just a passing feeling. She remembered a military competition and decided to train hard for it. She trained even harder, focusing on winning not just for herself, but for their future together. When the competition came, Amaka faced tough challenges, but she stayed focused. And when she won, she felt proud, knowing it was a win for both of them. Amaka knew it was time for her next move. She met with the colonel, showing her trophy as proof of her dedication. She told their story, from their feelings to her training and the competition win. The colonel listened carefully, then said while Amaka was a great soldier, the rules about fraternization still applied. Amaka felt really disappointed, but before she could say anything, Mike spoke up. He told the colonel they understood the rules but wanted to suggest a solution. They proposed a 1-year trial where they'd be at different bases but could still talk and visit sometimes. They wanted to prove they could be both in love and good soldiers. The colonel thought about it for a while. It was an unusual idea, but Amaka's win and their determination impressed her. She said she needed time to think and that it needed approval from higher-ups. Waiting was hard, but they stayed hopeful. Finally, after weeks, they got the news: their plan was approved. It wasn't perfect, but it was a big step forward. The next year went by quickly, with visits and letters keeping their love strong. They felt even closer, knowing they were working towards a future together. When the trial period ended, they stood before the colonel again, nervous but hopeful. This time, they weren't asking for a transfer or a trial. They were asking to get married. The colonel, smiling a little, said they were exceptional soldiers and people. She gave them permission to marry. Amaka teared up as Mike took her hand. They had fought for their love and won. Their wedding day was full of joy and support from their fellow soldiers. As they danced together, they knew their love had triumphed over rules and challenges. Their story became famous among the troops, showing that love and duty could go hand in hand. They continued to serve their country proudly, their love inspiring others to believe in a future where both love and duty were possible.